Hello, you golfing legends, and welcome back to another episode of the original Off Course. I'm your host, Dan Edwards, and joining me this week is my good buddy, James Miles, aka J-Man. Welcome back.
Let's say, I guess I need to change my name on this since people can see it now and everything.
You're effectively famous at this point, so they need to know who it is.
Yeah.
You can find James' work on the Hackers Paradise homepage. He writes excellent reviews there, as well as providing feedback on the forum. So if you're looking to run him down and challenge anything he says in this episode, go find him. He loves a little bit of banter.
Bring it on.
Yeah. The video episode. This is technically your first video episode with me. So not only do people get to listen to you, they also get to look at you, which is very exciting.
I know. That's why I was making sure my lighting was okay, and you were making fun of me. So
I think your lighting's better than mine is. So that's great. It has been a little bit weird, the transition. Like, hey, where can we find you? I'm like, everywhere.
All the places.
I guess not in theaters or anything like that. Thank goodness. Although I know at least 3 people would pay admission to listen to our nonsense.
At least you're not on some of those websites either, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I got some pretty okay feet. They're not tan at all, but oh wow, we've gone wildly off track
course
here.
foot finder. All right, Josh is gonna love it.
Welcome to this episode, which is unavoidable. What's going on with you? How's the game?
I survived Ballyhack, barely. That was a little rough as far as where the game is concerned, but it worked out well. I mean, got it around. I elected to not play any this week to try to recover a little bit. I don't know. You know how it goes. Sometimes things are clicking and then sometimes they're just not. And it was kind of one of those. I mean, I made birdies and stuff, but it could have been better.
And then other times it's 100 degrees and brutal.
Yeah, there is that. And, battling pops and all that stuff. And then I come home from 100 degrees into 100 degrees. So it's great, Dan.
Yeah. Of all the things I'm really okay at, golfing in heat usually has a pretty short shelf life. I'll tell you that much. We actually, you know this well, but I talk a little bit about it on the podcast, but the family is like way into golf at this point. So not only do I get to play with my boys, but then it's like, hey, are we playing this weekend? And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. I'll play an extra however many holes you want. So we went out, what was that, on Sunday? And it was a great idea. Listen, it was a great idea until all that humidity came out of the ground because we'd gotten some water, and we're all out there just
a little bit. That
extra 9 in the sauna, man. I think I had 4 really good holes, and then I was just pretty over it.
But was Cal having a good time?
Oh, he's having a good time.
Well, then that's all that matters. You could suck it up and deal with it.
And that's what I did. What was surprising to me was that my wife, who sits on the beach at her leisure when she goes on vacation, she's like, it's too hot out here. I'm like, well, if you're upset about it, then what am I doing here?
We have problems.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of in my world. I really enjoyed following along with you. You guys were out there with Mitsubishi.
Yes, sir. It was a really good trip. It was really nice to get to know Jonathan and Mark and those two and everything that they're doing. Because I mean, even as many years as we've been in this, like I've played Mitsubishi shafts. I've been around Mitsubishi shafts, but I didn't really know the origins. And like Mark's one of the original 3. Which is wild to think about. And better than that, though, they were tremendous dudes, and they can play some golf.
You know what I love about some of these companies who've been around for a really long time is you get into enough foursomes, and inevitably there's at least one of their shafts just hiding in there, and it's usually one of the favorite clubs that's withstood the test of time in a golf bag. And it's like, how does that have so much staying power? And it's just the connection between the shaft and the head just really performs for people. I mean, we're celebrating, or I guess they're celebrating, a pretty significant milestone for Diamana this year. They've got some new products that you guys were showcasing a little bit at the event. I feel like it's a good time to be a fan of golf shafts because there's so much cool stuff going on. But then you also have a chance of these companies who have really defended the reason for them to exist and be viable to come back around and say, hey, we have awesome products. Don't forget about that.
I mean, yeah, and it's wild to think about with Mitsubishi. Like, remember when Diamana hit, like they were on top of the game. So like you look at where Ventus is now and everything else, and that was Diamana. Like that's so we're hitting 20 years of Diamana now, and everything shifts back towards, and they're making their ways into this new ebb and flow of the market because things are trendy, right? The trendy things hit, and it may feel like there's links between, but they have, with their 20th anniversary, really kind of honed in on who they want to be and what they're going to do going forward with Diamana and then Tensei and some other stuff that's going on, the putter shafts and everything else. But I mean, I learned more than I ever expected to, like the fact that they produce their own materials and they sell their materials to a whole lot of other shaft companies too, which is wild. But it's likewise, I mean, we've got other stuff going on the website right now, that you're going to be part of with some of the other stuff with UST Mamiya, and everybody's creating right now, everybody's producing right now, and the shaft segment is the golf shaft segment, before I get in the out of context thread on our website, is kind of booming right now.
Yeah. And it's fun because you talk about Diamana, and there's obviously a clear indicator from them that is a significant milestone right now for Diamana. But then, oh, hey, by the way, Tensei is kind of in everything. It's not hard to find. I was actually just at a fitting the other day, and I had multiple Tensei options. I've had Tensei white in the bag. I've attempted Tensei orange, which didn't work as well as white. I've got buddies who play Tensei blue. What was the sense you got from the guys when it comes to that? Are they really focused in on one product, or is their goal to just be all encompassing and provide a variety of options for people?
Well, I think it was pretty nuanced in that before we get to that aspect of it, I think Mitsubishi more than most handles the standard shafts. I don't want to say stock shafts, but standard shafts for releases and the differentiation with their premium line of shafts. Like Diamana, when you get into the two lines themselves, Diamana is its feel, right? Diamana was the shaft that put that on the board. Its feel, its smoothness, its performance, it's all of those things and stability rolled into one. And then Tensei kind of gets to be, it's almost like their playground, where that's the tech heavy, tech forward shaft, right? We've seen boron in some of the Tensei shafts. You got the 1K, you've got the 1K Pro, you've got the regular Tensei, you've got all these things. And the way they explained it to us is that's where all the technology and the tech heavy designs can go. And then Diamana stays within what, it's the crown jewel for Mitsubishi, and it stays as such. And they implement things into those shafts, like with the new whiteboard and some other things that are coming. Like they're implementing it all, but they have these two distinct lines now that I think makes it work very well. Because you remember a few years back, at one point, they had so many SKUs. Like we had Fubuki, we had Tensei, we had Diamana, we had like 5 different versions of Diamana, and they still exist to an extent, but now it's more streamlined into, here's the Diamana tree, here's the Tensei tree, and that's what they're going to run with.
What I like about Tensei is there's a clear differentiator, if you will, between the line. We are inherently visual people, unavoidably so. So when you give us a color, it's like, okay, I know what I'm in. I couldn't tell you what it says on the shaft, but I can tell you that the Tensei I like the most is the white one. And then you sort of mix and match from there and find out what works for you. Did I see you had a red one in play?
I have a 70 gram Tensei Red and X, the 1K, that I put in play in the Dark Speed LS driver. Yeah.
Okay. What's the story on that one?
Well, it's in that head. I've kind of been messing with something with a little more active towards the tip section, but staying more stable underneath the hands, because as you know, I can get a little violent from the top, but still getting the benefits of what I want to see spin wise and what I want to see peak height wise, without having to really go into and adjust the head a whole lot. It's kind of a fine tuning thing. Prior to that, I've been also working with the red profile in UST, so the Tensei made the most sense. I hit it pretty well. I mean, Ballyhack, as you know, that's a tough course whenever it comes to driver at times, and for it's not. Don't take it the wrong way, but there's like when you get to the backside, you and I both played it. There's not many holes where we hit driver.
Yeah, I mean you can hit driver, but the risk reward there is much larger.
And when it's in
Um,
a competition,
yeah, you keep the ball in play. It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's interesting. I love that we see these different colors show up, but what I think is fascinating about Mitsubishi is they've sort of snuck their way into iron shafts and become very relevant there. I saw that you guys got putter shafts, which is really interesting.
mhm,
I don't think they're afraid to try, but also recognize that there are certain elements that they really, really have staying power with and maintain that position while experimenting elsewhere. Did you get a sense of that from them?
yeah, I think. I mean, there's a lot of clarity with them now, which I was really really happy to see because like the MMT thing, the MMTs are not going away. Like they know where they sit with those and what they've done for them. And it's interesting because in the graphite iron section, they're very different than a lot of other stuff going on with the metal mesh technology that's in the tip section. Like that plays completely different than how some of the other graphite shafts are designed. To me, the MMTs are way more steel like. And that's what they want. They want thicker walls, heavier shafts to play more steel like in a lot of aspects of it. And as far as the putter shafts, they they it kind of falls back into we got the P105 putter shaft, which is based off of a prototype that they made for Colin Morikawa that he put into play in the Ryder Cup after just getting it. Like that was one of like two of them on the planet, and Colin put it into play. And it's something we learned that Mitsubishi will do is that if players go to them and ask for something like a specific profile or a tweak, sometimes they'll do it. Like they'll make that one-off design for them, which I don't know of a whole. And there may be other shaft companies that do it, but it's not. They don't put it out there and tell you that like Mitsubishi did. So I think when you add those two to like Tensei and Diamana, like you have a very robust lineup now out of Mitsubishi.
I like your mention of the metal mesh technology or mesh
Mhm.
technology. It's very interesting because you know traditionally as a follower of graphite, there's always this discussion of flags and where do you put the flags
Yep.
and where do you build up your material. But in reality, and we've seen this in other companies, it's not technically a new concept to sort of crisscross the material that goes into play, but that visual component is always fascinating. And I like the idea that these driver technologies, which we have been pretty obsessed with over the last decade, are sneaking their way into iron shafts. And I feel like that progression exists because people are slowly starting to recognize that, okay, so hardest club in my bag or hardest swing in my bag is my driver, and I trust graphite for that. So when I go down to a more controlled swing, why do I stop trusting graphite and switch into steel? And the reality is you can do wildly more things with graphite because it's not a singular steel wall with
Correct.
steps, and that's effectively the extent of it. You now have the ability to create quite a lot of things in your swing, or sorry, in your build to promote launch, to promote spin, to promote
Yeah.
as our buddy Nick last week said, shaft or head droop and things like that. Like there's
Yep.
so much going on with that swing. The ability for them to come in and really create these finite level adjustments to support a golfer's swing. You'd think this will be the next big step, is that people finally recognize, okay, maybe there is, something there that I need to get involved with.
Yeah, and I mean everything with graphite, everything is independent. Like you can change flex and keep feel. You can change feel and keep flex. You can alter weight. You can change every aspect of the bend profile. Whereas with steel, steel is by nature limited based on how thin you can make the steel, how you can flatten it, where you put the steps. Like I mean, think about it. The number one steel shaft in golf has been the same way for what 100 years.
Well, I
Like
think
that's
about like LZ and DG Spinner as really good examples. Like you can very clearly see what they have to do to manipulate the
oh
steel to get it to do what you want it to do.
yeah, I mean, and you remember the reaction of the spinner whenever it first came out with that midsection.
Hmm.
It's wild. The same thing with the DG Pro iron shafts. Whenever we got some of that. So for graphite, I think it makes the most sense when you really break down and I've played graphite for a long time now. Last year was the first year I didn't, and I regretted it because I've gotten so accustomed to it because I can tune everything in. And typically I can do it at a lighter weight without sacrificing strength, which I really like for my body as I get older. And
Wait,
we
how
had
old are
good
you?
I'm 40. Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
But no, we had good conversations about that because that was some of the questions the guys asked about graphite. Like you and I've been around this a long time now, and we've always asked, well, is there a stigma? Is there a stigma to it? And it's honestly, it's age. A lot of the guys that are resistant were around when the first graphite iron shafts came out, and they did do all these things that they claim current ones do as far as how flexible they were, how inaccurate, and all this other stuff. And that's nowhere near the thing now. So as people age out and new generations come through, you become more accustomed to graphite. And I think the composite iron shaft is the way that everything is going to go. But the other big part of it's cost, right? Like the cost is going to be what it's going to be, and it's going to be more than steel always. So that's always going to be a limiting factor as well. And plus,
And
let's be
potential
honest.
for less durability, which is always scary.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest. Most of the OEMs are not doing any favors to people in their opinions of graphite shafts in irons because the shafts that they're putting in irons are extremely, extremely lightweight and low on the flex profile. You can't get S or X or anything else in that for stronger swingers. So the only thing they're exposed to are those other ones. And I'm not knocking anybody for it, but that's the reality. If people
Well,
don't have the means to go try it, right, then they're never going to order it with it in there.
yeah.
They're not
And
going to
you're
special order it for
effectively
$50 a shaft, $80 a shaft.
right. You're painted into a bit of a corner as an OEM to produce product
Oh,
that exists in a window that people are willing to use,
yes.
and
And it's financial, right? It has
I
to hit a
totally get
certain,
it. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
It actually gives us an opportunity, and this is sort of like I guess you could say a primer or precursor to an exciting piece that's going to be happening on the THP forum. I'm assuming it might sneak its way on the homepage at some point, but at this juncture, the plan is that the staff members on THP, some of the writers, the moderators, will be receiving a couple of proto shafts from UST Mamiya, and I don't know what the heck's going on. I got a couple here I'm really excited about to put in. We've had a chance to swing at least one of them already this year. It's a totally new concept, and of course our friend Danny is probably laughing right now. Like, yeah, good luck, man. Try and wrap your head around whatever crazy stuff I've concocted here, but it is an exciting thing. I love the idea with THB being so testing heavy and the willingness to see what the regular golfer thinks of a product. The chance that we have now to go and hit these protos and really try and put a finger on what's going on and see which one performs best for our game. It's an exciting thing, man. Do you have that same sense of excitement considering you're typically getting product on a regular basis?
Yeah. I mean, first off, anytime Danny sends something in a box, you kind of never know what you're going to get. And that's exciting unto itself. But the fact that we kind of got, well, one, if you've paid attention to the THP community for any period of time over the last year, you've heard people talking about these different experiences that we have and them hitting Josh's driver or Danny's driver if it's one of the UST events. And then from that, they talk about the profile because it's broken a whole lot of minds. And we know nothing really about it. We can make guesses that I'm not going to because then Danny will point at me and say, "Ha, you're wrong." But I hit it on the range at Briggs whenever we had our staff retreat, and I swung it. And you do the old waggle test the first time, and when you do the waggle test, you're like, "Oh God, what is this?" And I hate doing that because I make fun of people on the internet for doing that. But I did that, and then I roped one. And so it's like, okay, well, I'll hit another one, and then I roped another one, and then I hit another one, and then I'm like, okay, Josh, I need one of these. Because it makes no sense. And so it's going to be an exciting one. I mean, I think the group of us are going to have our work cut out for us as far as putting them through their paces, but it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be chaotic. And what I need to do is start with an open mind because the last shaft that was unmarked that Danny sent me was like a double or triple X.
Yeah. I remember.
And the most annoying part was I actually kind of liked it. So
I think you got the triple X and you sent me like the double X and was just laughing all the way. Yeah.
Yeah. So So if you folks out there are curious about that, we will start to have feedback rolling in as we get them tipped up and put them in play a little bit. And again, if you follow along with Shaft Up and some of the other activities that UST Mamiya has been involved in, you'll get to hear people react when they hit these shafts and just. I assume it's one of those things where 1+1 doesn't really equal 2 in this case. There's a whole lot. You know those equations you look at your kids bring home in high school and you're like, can you help me with my math homework? And you're like, nope, that's on you. I feel like that's one of these moments where you just sort of try and, you know, fill in the gaps and see what you can figure out. I'm excited about it, man. It's crazy.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. Go swing it and try to figure it out and compare them and contrast them and just go into the unknown. There's something cool about that on my end as opposed to, you know, knowing every marketing and tech aspect of something and then having to go see if it performs like they claim. Now you just get to go see what it is. So that's pretty cool.
I feel like we're gonna have to get Danny back on at some point to give us the rundown on what's going on. But in the interim, I do want to ask you, because you've had a couple pretty significant changes this year. And one of the things that you haven't really talked a lot about is your putting. What is in the bag right now and why?
I love the angst and why.
Yeah.
I have a Lab DF3 that's the most
Can,
beautiful
can I,
beautiful blue in the world that you should love because it's blue, yet you just make fun of my putter.
before you go into this, I wanna make something real clear. One of my golfing buddies, who I really need to get on the podcast, I think he'd have a lot of fun on here. He sent me a link the other day. He's like, "What the hell is this?" And it's just a list of lab putters. And we saw another thing like top putter sales from Club Champion. It's just a bunch of lab putters. So I feel like it's inevitable. And you being a putter guy, I'm sure you're curious at one point. Our buddy Dean, who typically considers himself to be a pretty terrible putter, actually putted quite well with one, which I'm sure kickstarted your perspective on it a bit. So I interrupted you a little bit, and I'm not sorry about it. Please continue with the beautiful blue putter you have.
Well, I mean, it got started because of Dean's 27.5-inch putter
Yeah.
at Briggs Ranch that I had to crouch over and try to use. And I mean, I've messed with the 2.1 before here and there, and I understand the technology behind it as far as being torque balanced and the face wanting to stay square through everything. And in execution, it's real. I mean, you've played enough golf with me. I'm not a bad putter. I consider myself pretty far from a bad putter. I'm pretty comfortable over anything and usually do pretty well by it. And this was just kind of one of those. After we were at Briggs, I went to PJ Superstore and traded a bunch of stuff in, and I had to find something. And I'm like, well, there's that. It's blue. And I picked it up and I proceeded to go out the first round and make 6 birdies and shoot 68. And then I shot 68 again the next day. And that's kind of been it. Now, we did have our first fight in my last round at Ballyhack a little bit, but that was more heat and nerves, I think, than anything else. So it's big, it's ugly, but it works. And I'm kind of at that point where if I can save 2 or 3 shots around, that's a bigger deal than just, going from an 87 to an 84. That's the difference in going from a 74 to a 71. So I got
The guy says 68 twice, then he's talking about an 87 to an 84. Like, come on, man.
I don't know. I could throw up some big numbers like the best of them. So,
Well, I think it's interesting because you're such a putter guy. Most people live in a pretty small window when it comes to their putting. Probably also the same guys who spend 45 minutes on the range before the round and then don't bother putting before they go out there. But, I would think that the challenge for you is knowing that there's so many cool putters in the stable and you have this crazy looking thing that just sort of works for you. Is that hard?
I mean, that's the exact thing that I talked to the guys at the Mitsubishi event when we were out putting on at night on the green. It was like, the biggest part of it is like I have some of the prettiest putters on the planet that I absolutely love the look of, and then there's this thing that I don't hate it as much as I did, but it's ugly. You can see behind me. Like I have a problem when it comes to head covers and stuff, and these sure as heck aren't going to fit on that damn thing.
That looks like a solution to me.
So there's that aspect of it, but I mean, right now I'm messing around with it. I've got one of the Diamana P105 shafts in it, so my excuse is I have to continue to test that shaft for the forum, and we'll see how long it lasts. I'll really, you want to know the truth? The gateway drug to all of this was the Jailbird Mini and me rolling it so well, and that's the first big mallet that I could look down at and enjoy. So I was like, well, if I could look at this, I could look at that, and so here we are.
Do you think that that type of putter eliminates a lot of what people love about a putting game? That's
How do
such
you
a
mean?
loaded question, I know.
Yeah.
So, for example, the guy who is a field putter,
Mhm.
and when you have a product like that, or when you implement something like an SPI or something like
Mhm.
that, you're almost forced to eliminate some of the nuance in the stroke, some of the nonsense that we do.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, that takes away the feel aspect of putting. Do you feel like it's a putter that eliminates a lot of that and forces you to sort of fall within a very small window of style?
When I tried the 2.1, the giant one, the original, I felt that way about it because the feel was awkward, the size was awkward, the shaft was placed further back into like the dead center of the head, and it was so much different from everything that I've known. Honestly, with the two with the new one, the DF3, my SPI background, eliminating variables, right? Prayer, I putt with a very much a prayer grip, so my hands aren't usually present in a putting stroke. I think they actually lent to it and made the transition easier for me.
Okay.
If that, which is unique. Plus, it actually for an aluminum putter, like it actually feels quite good off the face, which is the saving grace for me whenever it comes to all that. I'm hitting a whole bunch of different things at once, but I do think that there is, when you have the guy who knows the idiosyncrasies of his stroke as far as how much arc and how much and all of that, and if you hold off through impact and all these other things, I think that person will have the bigger issue acclimating to one of the directed force putters, because you basically just have to let go and just let the putter work.
So
So
that was the point I was trying to make, is not necessarily that someone like you, who's a fairly good putter, would struggle to move into a head like that because you are quite neutral with a lot of things. I would say more neutral than most with a lot of things based on your background. But you see this success on tour with it, and you see the
yeah,
success of just mallets overall with it, and suddenly people are curious. And I've seen plenty of times where someone puts a product in play and they're not implementing it correctly. They still try and do the things that are inherently bad, but it works well for them with the products they have.
yep.
So they go and they try and hit these very particular styles of product, and it becomes impossible for them.
Well, and I think that's going to be the interesting thing to watch with Lab, because everything, like it's real, as goofy as anybody may want to call it. They even admit how goofy they look, and they own it, which that's kind of refreshing off of it all. But like, I mean, the grip on my putter is set for forward press because of where the shaft inserts. I don't press. To me, forward pressing is one of the ultimate variables that you could do, because it's so hard for an amateur golfer to do the same every time. But with the grip that they've designed, like, you literally are just setting the grip at the center and it's pressed for you. But I think the problem, and I've seen it around the club with a few guys that have picked them up, is they take this kind of a putter and they slap their favorite putter grip on it, and now all of a sudden they are trying to manipulate the face on it all, and they can't hit the broadside of a barn because they don't understand the concept, which is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It's a very slippery slope. If it's explained properly and somebody's going to do it, then it makes sense. For example, at the Mitsubishi event, whenever I had the guys rolling it on the green, and a few of them wanted to and they struggled, I told them, take your thumbs off. Just stroke it without your thumbs on it, because now you can't twist it. And lo and behold, it unlocked for every one of them. But that's such a different, out there kind of thing that, yeah, I mean, you're going to love it or you're going to hate it.
I love that putting is, I would argue, one of the hardest things to master, but one of the easiest things to improve.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I know that's the most loaded
No,
thing ever.
it makes perfect
But
sense, though.
I started a thread on THP, I think last week, asking people to rate their putting, and I had intended to follow up with it about putter improvement or putting improvement. What surprised me was the number of people that had fairly low expectations themselves. And listen, I've been over the top of the driver for a couple years now. It is what I would consider to be one of the hardest things to change in a golf swing. That over the top move with putting. When I decided to go from a really bad putter to a fairly decent putter, that change was relatively easy. I read and learned and studied and took a lesson and chose the right things to implement. And I was blown away at how quickly you can adapt to a quality putting stroke that eliminates variables using fairly simple mechanics with the most you would need is maybe an alignment stick and probably a video for takeaway and contact. So I guess my question to follow up and give you a chance to chime in there is, does it surprise you when people are fairly bad at putting but have made no real attempt to improve it?
No, and I think it's I blame. I mean, you go to my background in high school coaching, like getting kids even to practice putting was the hardest thing because all of them think you just have to do block practice, right? And all of them, it's boring for the most part. Like your willingness, you have to have a mindset to sit there and do and work through all this. And I think a lot of people just don't. And plus, I mean, I get it. If I go to my course, I can either, go putt for an hour and a half, or I could go out and play a couple golf holes. And I'm more likely to go play some. I think you just have so many other things that you can do. And if you can't go play and you've only got an hour to spend, are you going to spend an hour on the putting green, or are you going to go to the range? Most guys are probably going to go to the range.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just the nature of the beast. You don't take advantage of things. Like for me with my ADD, like if I put headphones in, I can sit on a putting green for 2 hours and just roll putts. If I'm out there in the middle of prep for a tournament or for whatever else, I'm like 4 or 5 putts. I'm like, okay, let's go. And that's just me. And I think it's an interesting thing. It's frustrating because it is. I will say I do believe that pretty much anybody can become a consistent putter in terms of having a consistent stroke and good control of pace. Now, reading a green is a totally different ball of wax, but I don't think there's any reason that you shouldn't be able to become consistent with a putter in your hand. It's just you have to decide to.
Yeah. You feel free to text that to my wife later. She'll be glad to hear that.
She'll go, James who?
The level of indifference and surprisingly works well for her. But now I think it's really interesting, man. I have this conversation a lot with my golfing friends and locally because oftentimes I tend to make a few putts around and they like to give me grief about it. And I'm like, look, man, easiest way to do this every round is to just eliminate the variables and take the nonsense out of the putting stroke, because each time you come out here, if you put a tiny bit of nonsense into your putting stroke, well, suddenly you're now a feel putter or you're a streaky putter. And the second that happens, you have to wait for the perfect day for that to work out. And who knows if that perfect day is the grass is too long. So you putt everything online, but it's, coming up a hair short and you lose out on that perfect day because you waited so long and you didn't get any better. And then you
change something else anyway. And yeah, right. The cycle continues. It's true.
Yeah. I love that debate because, of all the things I would hate to spend money on, or not spend money on and not improve on, I can bang balls for an hour. You can bang balls for an hour and do it the wrong way, and you're bad for an hour.
True. That's
you
true.
Go to the putting green and you start to work on these very simple fundamentals that you can find anywhere, and it's like, well, after an hour, I'm suddenly a lot more consistent, and it should be very, very visible to anyone who's trying to accomplish it. So, yeah, we might chip away on this at the forum a little bit if people come in for conversation, talking about their experience with putting. But I do want to tell you a little secret. I had a chance the other day to go bang a new product that's coming out to market, the Titleist GT Driver. James, man, I'm telling you what, that is a cool update. I'm pretty excited about it.
I know nothing about it, so I think they look fantastic.
So here's what I've heard about it, because this is interesting. If you look at the feedback they've got on their website, they're talking about the Titleist Speed Project,
Yep.
and that's what TS stood for. Interesting, they've gone to GT. So maybe they feel like the speed component is effectively where they want it to be, and they've shifted into this new concept. But here's what I know. They clearly took aerodynamics very seriously in this go-around. I get a sense there's some different materials that exist in the product this time. And I'll tell you what, dude. This is what really surprised me. I didn't fit into GT4, which I was in TSR4. I fit into GT3.
Nice. That's intriguingly exciting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes.
I didn't get a sense they went like high or low on anything, but I did get a sense that they took contact sound very seriously. I think they took contact quality very seriously. And from what I can tell, some of the materials have continued over, but the shaping has changed quite a bit. You can see the lines. I started with GT2, and shifted to GT3, and you could see how much deeper the driver head was. There's a very clear styling there. Of course, I love GT4 with this tiny little 430 head, but I think there was enough in GT3 that I got some really cool results with. And I'm telling you what, dude, they sound great. They sound so good.
That's exciting. I mean, I was big on the TSR line, so yeah. But I mean, that journey for them has been trying to catch up on speed from where they knew that they lacked for all those generations, and here we are. You know, they had 3 generations where they did it. So now to move to something, whatever. Like I'm excited to know more. I mean, I played the 4 for about half the season last year. I know you and I were both in it, so being in 3 is exciting.
It's wild, right? What I did a little research because they have had it on tour. I think they released it at Muirfield.
Yep.
And they have a bit of social media going on. The number of guys that fit into 3 and didn't even bother with the 4 was really surprising to me. Like, if you go through some of their Instagram posts, you'll see a couple guys, like 1 or 2 guys in 2, and then like the blanket in 3. It's really interesting.
That is interesting. I mean, I don't know. They've done an exceptional job in the past cycle with differentiating the drivers. So I'm curious to see where that goes from here.
Isn't that cool? So yeah, I think it's going to be I don't know when they fully release, maybe later on in the summer. But you can clearly see they're starting to talk about it a little bit more on their social channels. Obviously getting some tour play. I can't wait to see what's curious about it, James. I didn't see anything about at a GT1, so I wonder if they're going to operate the same way they did previously, where the 1 sort of chases the storyline, and people get a chance to hit 2 and 3 before making a big decision on 1, or maybe they just haven't decided what 1 is yet. What do they need away from 2 or away from 3 to really support the masses?
They have their ways of doing things. We know that about Titleist, so maybe it's going to fall back into that kind of pattern of it all. I don't know.
Right. You know what I didn't do? I didn't heckle the fitters about left dot. I really regret it. Of all the things I could chirp about, and maybe I was just having too much fun, I did not think about chirping left dot. That's really disappointing.
9 years down the road from now, you're still going to be talking about left dot.
Yeah, it'll still be called Pro V1, but they'll have gone through so many iterations by then. Man, I don't know. It's exciting to hit new product. You do it quite a bit. You have an opportunity to hit a fair bit of it, and I know you're not shying away from any demo days that show up at the course. So you're a curious guy. Has there been one product this year at this point that has really just rattled your cage?
Oh man, I don't know. I have bounced between drivers more this year than I have in any of the previous years. And I think that's about the biggest nod that I can give to something like that.
I get a sense of dark speed's like sneaky good?
Yes, and I'm coming to realize that just the X is sneaky good. The LS remains the fastest head I've hit. The triple diamond from Callaway is fantastic. I'd really like to hit the triple diamond max, as I'm starting to embrace trying to find that 2,700 RPM window. That's a good place for me to live. I don't want to chase, low 2s anymore. That's scary. when you
It
have a
was
bad day.
17 degrees of launch, 1700 RPMs of spin. I
Oh
remember
God,
those days.
there's still people there's still people broken from that. I mean, hell, the Ping's 10K driver, the 10K Max or the Max 10K is actually really good. I for me, the drivers have kind of kept my attention more than anything else, and I think I've tinkered with drivers more than anything this year, which usually for me it's irons or wedges, you know.
Interesting. I didn't see that coming. I thought you were dark speed all the way. I know you had messed with Callaway and were really impressed by it, but I
Well,
got a sense that. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm mini driver all the way.
Oh, okay.
So let's be real clear right there.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, I would love to be living in that world. I'm still like, can my one iron function on this hole all the way?
You're running out of rhymes for fairway free.
Yeah, yeah. Did I do this hybrid horror in 2024 and it never came about?
It never for some reason it just never stuck.
Oh, what a letdown. I have other things to talk about, man, but is there anything just bouncing around your brain today?
Not really. I'm just enjoying the moment. You know, I like we're getting to that point in the year where we've got all kinds more experiences coming up, and then we fall into another release cycle, and it's just a good time to be around and not have to go outside in the 110-degree heat.
So that's the crux of it. What did you think about wandering around at St. Andrews? How have we not talked about that yet?
Oh, because it was both the like it was a moment. Like I was and my wife, bless her heart, didn't laugh at me. She didn't make fun of me. She was very excited for me. Um, that was really cool. And they dropped us off in the town, and you could do whatever. It's a little bitty town, smaller than I ever realized. And we just walked all the way across and right out to St. Andrews, and wandered around out there for the length of our time in town, which I think we got to stay 3 hours. So we ate lunch, and then we went and walked all over. I walked across 18 and 1 and got to stand there and take all the pictures, which I sent to you guys and said, hey, look where I'm at. And I got to see the Swilken Bridge. I did not go take a picture on it like so many people that are out there, because I was not playing. And I broke my wife's mind. She's like, well, go over there and stand on it and I'll take your picture. And I was like, no, like I'll be back. I'll be back and I'm going to play. And that's the most golfer thing ever. Right. But it's like when I play, I'll take the picture on it, because I'm going to go with buddies and do that whole thing and all that stuff. So we just have to get you on a plane for 9 hours, which is going to be difficult.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like you may as well just use my name now, because if you go there and play without me. Listen, I was fine you making that trip and just drinking your face off and wandering around seeing the sights. The idea that you going to play there without me is, no, I would struggle. I would struggle.
It was, I mean, and they have like a little pitch and putt and everything else. And my wife's like, hey, we can rent clubs. So you could say you played at St. Andrews. I'm like, no. But I mean, we and that's it. But it was I don't know. I'm not really a religious person, so it was probably as close to a religious experience as I get. Like that's golf, right? Like that's
the
St.
Mecca.
Andrews.
Yeah. We always say you pray to the golf gods, dude. That's where they hang out on Sundays. That's for sure.
I mean, Scotland as a whole is just that's just special. Yep.
That's cool. Hey, I have a question. How are the kids doing? Are they playing golf?
We are in week, I can't remember whatever, of golf camp. They didn't have it this week because we had our lady member guest out at the club, so they get back at it. I think we've got one more on-course day, and then the following week they do a tournament day. And all the kids get to play in the tournament day, and everybody can earn a point regardless of if you can't hit the ball or not, which is kind of cool. They do it right.
Nice.
Charlotte's thriving, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen, because she's not really shown the interest in anything athletic or anything like that. She's my bookworm, and she just let's take into it. And she's working with one of the ladies at the course, and she wants to start doing lessons, and she wants to start playing more, which is awesome. The twins are 6. So, I mean, you remember that, like they're in the moment and they're out there, but they're 6. Mm-hmm. So they're having a good time. We'll be at the point now where this fall, I can pick them up from school and we can go out to the course and go mess around. And I feel comfortable that they can exist on a golf course the right way. So
Right. That's really cool about Charlotte. That
it's awesome. It's exciting.
golf is such a mental game. As much as it requires some pretty impressive skills to accomplish, if you don't have a mental space to work in, you may as well just take up pickleball. Shout out to Muchie.
I was just gifted some pickleball paddles for my 40. It's so easy there.
Yeah. What are you gonna do with them? Pop an ACL?
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Listen, it looks like fun. When they bring that out on the Nintendo Switch, Cal and I will be hammering it.
Right.
But until then, I'm keeping all my limbs intact and not torn.
Probably a good call.
Yeah, man. Well, I'll tell you what. I have all kinds of stuff to talk about, but somehow we've made 20 minutes turn into 45.
That's what we do.
And the folks have work to do. It's Friday for some. It's much later if you're the other folks catching up. So I'll let you go, buddy, unless you have anything lingering that you need to say.
I'm good. We'll just have to come back and do it again.
Okay. Any shout out to some testing? I know you've taken a pretty heavy role on THP. Anything crazy going on there?
Oh man, the claw golf glove. Say that 5 times fast. The claw golf glove group has gotten underway, and they're doing really well.
Nice.
The Dynapower Forge group is kicking it pretty well. Hopefully, the Ragtag group of staffers can keep up with the upcoming driver shaft thing. We'll see.
Yeah, we got to set the tone. You know.
Oh Lord!
If you can't win, don't play. Right. Well, that's awesome. Hey, part of that, for those listening who aren't familiar with the THP community, there are testing opportunities that seem to be all the time over there. We've got quite a few things ongoing right now. So if you're curious about trying out new products, you can go sign up there for anything that's active. And if you're lucky, you'll get a chance to test and get heckled a little bit by James as he
I'm just
runs you
keeping
through the
people in
gauntlet.
line. I'm just keeping people in line.
I love it. Well, I'll tell you what, buddy. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. I'm glad you had a great time overseas.
It was awesome. This is way more fun than Scotland, though.
It's not. Hey, folks, if you're playing golf this weekend, have fun. If it's hot, I get it, but enjoy it. And based on my last experience, if you're playing down a fairway and you've managed to hit in someone else's, don't start talking to your buddies while they're trying to hit. Wait for them to go away. I'm not ranting right now. I'm just giving a little PSA. Let them hit, especially if it's their 8-year-old who's very intense. And then go talk to your boys. Either way, have a great time. It's always a blast having you guys chase the weekend with me. And I will catch you next week.